Hello and welcome. I am Scrapperlock, and this is City of Villains. On the Rebirth server, we are with our level 27 Mastermind, Nightmare Lass, who has 579,000 experience, 110,000 to go to get to level 28, and our next power, which should be World of Pain. And that will be interesting. Not quite sure what that does, but we'll see when we get to level 28. And we're on our 4th mission for Buzzsaw. She asks us to get 5 items for her. So we got 3 last episode. We'll be getting to this episode. This time we'll be in an arachno space. Time to summon our pets. I really love the visuals of this. The little like pentagram that shows up, and then the way they look like they're climbing through the ground. Very cool. Oh, did somebody fall off? Meanie's all the way down there. Curly knocked him off. He'll come in with us. That is really funny. I wonder if he's going to get the purple buff. He did not. Alright, so I'll have to remember to buff him when we get inside. That's really funny that he ended up down there. Alright, demon boys, in we go. Next item on the list is a pair of cybernetic legs. We are in an arachno space. So, one of the things I wanted to mention, Kievar commented in an earlier episode, one or two episodes ago, when I was belly aching about the ambushes at the mission door. He said that he thinks one of the reasons that they did that, and he's probably right about this, is for people who do the doorway leveling. So, if you haven't heard of this, let me explain how this works. So with doorway leveling, what you do is, let me tell the guys to stay here. You come into the mission, you and your buddy, and you stay here, and you go walk away. You go eat a sandwich, watch TV. Your buddy comes in and does the whole mission. And the way the algorithms work in City of Heroes, if you're in the mission in a group, all the XP earned by the group is divided by the group members. So your buddy is over here taking out purple spawns with his souped up character, with all of his inspiration or enhancement sets, right? And you get half the XP for it. And I know somebody in my supergroup was talking about how, like, his wife just sat at the mission door while he leveled her up. And she got like 48 levels in a weekend or something like that. That's called doorway leveling. And so he said maybe what's going on is they've got the ambushes set up there to prevent that kind of thing, which is possible. Although I think if they did it for that purpose, it wasn't a very skillful way to do it. Because doorway leveling doesn't just happen at the beginning of the mission, which is when the ambush occurs, right? It happens all through the mission. So, yeah, I don't know if that's why they did it. If so, it is a classically ineffective method that the developers of City of Heroes had to try and get rid of exploits. There are lots of exploits in this game that the players came up with, and I don't necessarily approve of exploits. In fact, I absolutely do not approve of them. But a lot of times what the developers came up with to try and get around the exploits literally did not work, or the players just came up with something else. So, anyway, that's entirely possible. I think that there was a much better way to fix that problem, and that was, and I suggested this way back during live, they should have just had a distance limit on the on XP, right? So that if you're all the way over here, you're too far away from the battle, you cannot get XP, right? Just do a distance limit. Oh, I didn't realize we had a boss here. All right, better help these guys out. How's the boss doing? Where is the boss? Where'd she go? Why am I not able to target her? This is weird. Why can't I target the boss? I don't even know where she is. Oh, is she just hidden? But my guys can see her, even though I can't. That is hilarious. Well, the AI exploit works in my favor for once. So I'll just keep healing my guys and let them kill her. I don't know how many hit points she has. There she is. Oh, she's almost dead. Yeah, so I'm blinded by whatever she did to me there. Smoke grenade. Got a clue, and we completed the mission. Wow, alright. So we got the arm. So, what I was going to say, how to correct this is just to put a distance limit, right? And they did this with sidekicking. You had to be 50 yards from your mentor, or the sidekick dropped. That's not true anymore, but in the old days, that was in fact the case. You had to be within 50 yards of the one guy who was your mentor, right? Nowadays, what happens is you get into the group, and whatever level the group leader is, that's the level of everybody in the group, and everybody gets sidekicked up or down to that level. But in the old days, you had to have an individual mentor. And if I'm level 15 and you're level 10 and I bring you into the group and call you my sidekick, as long as you're within 50 yards of me, you can get the benefits of the level boost from being next to me. So they could have easily done that with XP too. You got to be within 50 yards of the XP gain or you don't get the XP. You're not close enough to the battle, you didn't learn anything from that fight. I would have been fine with that, and it would have prevented, completely 100% prevented doorway leveling. Now, it wouldn't have prevented somebody from setting themselves, and people did this too, from setting themselves on auto-follow and just follow you around. In fact, my former supergroup leader actually said that if you want to do serious leveling, you need to do 2 boxes, 2 accounts, and one of your accounts is the main character that's whatever normal class, and the other account is your defender with the auto heal. And you just take a power like this and you control click it so that it runs every time. Obviously you're going to triple recharge, triple heal, right? And you just put yourself on auto follow and you just follow, have that character on a computer that's just sitting there not being touched by anyone, following around your main character to heal you up. That's how, like, the hardcore levelers do it, guys. I mean, I don't do stuff like that. To me, that's like, why play? You know? I don't even bother. But, like, they literally can't prevent that from happening. And when they try, they always come up with solutions that don't work. So I think a 50-yard distance or 100 feet, something like that, would have probably been sufficient to ensure that the more like simple doorway leveling couldn't be done. And you're obviously not going to stop the really sophisticated stuff like dual boxing. There's just nothing you can do about that. But yeah, they had lots of measures that were singularly ineffective to achieve the result that they wanted, right? So what would happen is the players would just find something else. The nerf bat is like playing whack-a-mole, right? And so the ultimate first and probably biggest and most famous nerf in the history of City of Heroes was the burn nerf. I've mentioned this before. It happened because somebody in City of Heroes, when the day it launched, I think it was the day, I think it came out early access one day and then it released the next day or something. But the guy, like, in the second day of playability, right, within like 24 hours after the game launched, so it launched at, I don't know, 9 a.m. on a Tuesday, let's say, by like noon on Wednesday, this guy was level 40, which was max level when the game first came out, because they didn't have levels 41 to 50 done yet. So he leveled up and maxed out in one day, and he was a burn tanker. And the devs had been warned that burn was an exploit in could be exploited in beta, and I don't think they realized just how much of an exploit it could be, because they never really did anything about it. And this burn tanker figured it out, and he max leveled in 2 days. And there were rumors on the beta forums that people had figured out how to exploit things, had tested it for a level or two, and then, you know, put it in a drawer, didn't do any more in beta because they didn't want the developers to see the exploit and correct it, right? Because they wanted to uber level. And so, so I don't know how much truth there is to that, but anyway, a burn tanker player figured out how to exploit the game with burn, and because he was able to get to max level in 2 days, the developers panicked. They didn't have anything left to do in the game but level. There was no high-end content. There's just the Hamadan raid. And if you're not going to do the Hamadan raid, there was nothing to do at level 40, and people were going to just unsubscribe, right? I mean, it's a subscription-based game. If you can max level in a day, why is anybody going to go past... You know, you're going to have potentially multiple level 40 characters by the end of the first free month. Why would you ever subscribe? Right? And so they panicked, and they nerfed burn really hard. So what did he do? I've told this story on the Scrapper video, but I'll tell it again. He went into the hazard zones like Boomtown. I think he started in Boomtown doing this. I don't know if you can do it. I don't know if he did it in Paris Park. You can if there's a dumpster. I don't know if there is. There probably is. It's called dumpster diving. So what he did was he found a dumpster graphical object like one of these things. It's a 3D object in the zone just like anything else, right? And unlike these crates, right, which have a top to them so that when you land on the crate, you stand on it, right? Unlike that, the dumpsters are open here three-dimensionally, and when you land in the crate, you're actually down inside of it, and it's not very big, and nothing else can get in once you're inside the dumpster, right? And so what this guy learned to do was to throw down, to get inside a dumpster, like here, right, and throw burn patches all around. Now, burn patches are damage over time, so they do a little bit of damage over time. You throw one down, and then it recharges. You can throw another one down, and they last for a while, right? So they stay around for, I don't remember the times, guys. But let's say a burn patch lasts 30 seconds and recharges in 10. That means you can throw 3 down. But now you put recharge enhancers on it, and you can suddenly throw, I think he was throwing down 5 or 6 burn patches at once, all overlapping, right? And then what he was doing was he was flying through the zone, taunting every single guy he could find, and then bringing them back to the dumpster, whoops, jumping inside the dumpster, burn patches all around the dumpster, and then he just kept taunting everything, and the AI couldn't get in to get him, right? They couldn't reach him, so that he was untouchable. But they kept trying to run at him because they kept trying to run into the burn patch. And they just burned to death trying to get at him without ever doing any damage to him, so it was like super easy. And he just kept taunting 20 guys, burn him down, taunting 20 guys, burn him down, taunt 20 guys, burn him down. And yeah, and then he would just go to the next hazard zone, go to Dark Astoria, you know, go to Craze Folly, etc. And he was able to do this in every zone, and he leveled super fast. Now, I think he played like for literally 20 hours straight, but that's how he managed to exploit burn. And so the first nerf that happened was they nerfed the heck out of burn, and they did a couple things. I think they made the recharge time much longer so that you couldn't stack it as much. And then they made it a reverse taunt so that whenever the burn patch went down and somebody started burning, they would run out of it, right? So they would run away. And it was more powerful than the taunt. So you taunt me, right? And I run at you, but I get in the burn patch, I turn around, and I run away. And the tankers hated it because they don't want things running out of their taunt. But that was sort of the first and probably heaviest nerf in all of City of Heroes, because they made burn so that it almost was completely useless to a lot of tankers, because then if things are going to run out of it, it's not going to do any damage to them. You can't keep them in there, and so you lay it down and it doesn't do any good. Now, there was a way around it. A friend of mine found this with ice fire tankers, right? You can lay down an ice patch that does knockdown, 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 and the things are just bouncing around, and then lay a burn patch on top of it, taunt them into it, they start getting knocked down, and then they can't run out of it. But you can only have, because I then tried it, it was really fun to do, but you can only have one ice patch and one fire patch going at a time because of the recharge times. And so it works for like the 2 or 3 guys that fit in there. But you can't surround yourself with burn patches and ice patches the way people were doing when the game first went live. Alright, so let's go back to our contact. So yeah, well, was that effective? Well, it was sort of effective in the sense that it stopped the burn patch exploit from happening, but it didn't address the singular issue that they had, that tankers could run around a zone, gather up 100 guys, and aggro, bring them all back into one clump, and then have some blaster AoE it to death, right? And that's what people would do. They would go into missions, gather up the whole mission, and bring them back to the door, and the blasters would just burn the crap out of everything, or kinetic energy, whatever it is. And then they had to do something else to fix that, which is they put a cap on how many things you could taunt, of like 12 or something. So you can't taunt the whole mission anymore. So, so did that work? Well, I don't know. I mean, people still grind through missions really fast. Each time they put in a measure to try to correct this, the players found another way to blow through missions. And I think, you know, you have to do something different if you're going to say, I don't want players to blow through missions. The first thing you have to do is make sure they don't want to blow through missions. Now, I enjoy these missions, but I would argue it's pretty clear that a lot of people don't, because the vast majority of people that I know just architect their way from 1 to 50 and then go play the Incarnate Trials. So that means they don't really like the missions and story arcs, right? Or they would do them. I like them, so that's why my show is about doing them, but most other people just want to get to 50 and do the Incarnate Trials. So what does that say about how much people like the missions? So I feel like City of Heroes developed a bunch of missions that I like, the old ones, but a lot of people clearly didn't like them because the first thing players tried to do was skip them, right? And you would think that that should have given the developers a clue, we might need to do something here. They never really did. Alright, so you return at last, my collector. Excellent. Let me see what you've recovered. I was wondering where these had gotten to. Ah, this one should be useful. A bit of cleaning, and this will be ready for resale and reuse. Ah, now I see the design flaw was in this. I'll have to repair and improve. So much to do. Now what's this? A shard of crystal impaled through this artificial heart. Yet it still works, even after its power supply is long dead. And that's a typo. It should be ITS. If you'll excuse me, I have to take some time to examine this. Speak to me again shortly. I may have some more work based on this. Absolutely fascinating. You've proven quite dependable, Nightmare Lass. Alright, so missions. She says, I tell you that I have discovered something astonishing. It seems that many of the items you recovered had microscopic fragments of a red coral crystal. Yeah, I've got the red coral embedded within them. No doubt from exposure to the red coral crystal found in the mines, or from battling with unnatural slag golems that infest certain parts of the island. Well, what I discovered was that the crystals were amplifying the power of those parts. Isn't it fantastic? It put me in mind of a new project. But in order to complete it, I will need both more cybernetic parts and a very large fragment of red coral crystal. Unfortunately, I know where both can be obtained. Very good. With your assistance, my super freak will be ready in no time at all. Now down to business. The slag golems are massing to attack the Hellforge, led by one of their number, whom my energetic freak show friends termed the Big Rocky. I strongly suspect that this Big Rocky may contain a massive fragment of red coral crystal in order to hold such great sway over the others of its kind. And again, a typo. I want you to retrieve this crystal for me. Also, it is likely that several freak show have fallen in the fighting. If you run across any, please use this list to gather the components I'm going to need. They won't miss them any longer, and each piece you find will get a second chance at life in the next project, the crystal-powered Super Freak. Okay. So we're going to recover the parts for Dr. Buzzsaw. Yeah, so, I mean, one of the things that I always used to argue about on the forums with the developers is they would be trying to put mechanical stops in the game to prevent players from doing things like invisible your way through the mission and just click the glowies and get mission complete without any fights. That's not what we want you to do, so we're going to try to stop you from doing it. Ambushes are a great example of that, right? The ambushes, as I grumbled about many times with my scrapper, because I think it's so out of character, they know exactly where your character is at all times on the map from the moment they enter the map, no matter how far away from you. They could be 500 yards away. They know exactly where you are, and they make a beeline to you, even if you're hidden, even if you're invisible. Which just is so immersion breaking to me. Right? 5 freak parts to collect. I probably should not have summoned these guys here, because we got to go looking for the parts. See if I can get them to stay here a little bit. So yeah, that was a mistake. All right, let me knock them out and go invisible and see if we can find these items. So what I'm about to do, they wanted to stop this, the developers. They didn't want you to fly around invisible and click glowies. And they tried to put mechanisms in place within the game, mechanical aspects to the game, like ambushes where they'll see me no matter what I do, right? To prevent me from being able to just glowy click my way to the end of the mission, right? And what I would argue repeatedly on the forums was, this is not a solution, right? Yeah, it can physically stop me from glowy clicking my way through the mission, but the only reason I'm doing that is because this is a ridiculously huge, boring mission, and I don't want to be bored for 45 minutes as I fight the same spawn over and over again in this huge, giant, mega... Look at the size of this outdoor map, right? And so what I said was, you guys have to address the problem that your game, that certain missions in your game are so boring that no one wants to play them, and we're trying to skip them, right? If that's a problem, you need to fix that and not stop the behavior, right? The behavior is a symptom of a problem, and the problem is that this kind of a mission where you have this huge giant outdoor map and a bunch of glowies to click is not fun to most players. It's just tedious. Alright, so here's the first glowy we have to click, and there's a freak. So we got to get him. Alright, so we may as well summon our buddies. And I'm going to summon them into the swamp, I guess. Come on. You don't want to summon in there? Oh, I got to turn visible. They won't mind swamp. They won't mind the slag. So, you know, my point to them was, if your game is not fun enough that people want to keep playing it, then you have a problem and you need to fix that. And they never wanted to listen to that, because that's a lot harder to fix than just throwing an ambush in there that ignores your invisibility. That's easy, right? That's just a couple of lines of code. But the fundamental design of the game that makes the players want to just blast their way through the mission and not actually play the whole thing, that is a much harder fix. Now, wasn't there a freak show here? I could have sworn I saw a freak show down here. Please tell me he didn't despawn. Now, I would just leave these guys here, but they don't like to stay. So we're going to go invisible again. And find the next glowy. Now we know we're looking for body bags. Right, but my question is always the design question. Why are players trying to skip your content, right? Instead of putting a bunch of programming code in place to prevent players from skipping the content, why don't you make the content something people don't want to skip? And then they'll actually play it. Now, the reality is, with MMOs, there are always going to be players who just want to get to the end of the game. And one of the other suggestions that I had for those players was, every 10 levels should be an unlock point of that level, right? And when you get to that point, you should never have to level up to it again if you don't want. Now, I would have. You guys know me. I like the journey, and I love the low-level game. I think my favorite part of the game is probably 1 to 10 and then 20 to 30. Those are the best levels. The teens are very, very tough because you don't have your enhancements in yet and things like that. But, is there a freak show here? Oh, he saw me. You see? He saw me. So now he's going to come after me. Thought I heard a glowy. But my point is, like, so my suggestion was, once you get to level 10, oh, I don't have invisibility engaged. Once you get to level 10, ouch. Once you get to level 10, you've made it to level 10, you unlock level 10, and then from then on, if you want, when you make up a character, when you go to click enter the game, you would have a choice. You could either, one left to go, you could either start a level 1 character or start a level 10 character. And then once you get to level 20, you could start a level 20 character if you want. And so on. So that the idea would be, once you've gotten one character to level 50, then from then on, you can just start with a level 50 character if you want. You don't have to level up anymore. Right? And the idea was, you should have to get to level 50 naturally once. But once you do that, you should be able to just make level 50 characters. And the whole idea was that this means that the players who want to just get through so they can do the end game content. If all you want to do is the end game content. If there's, that's just like, I thought that was Big Daddy. If all you want to do is just the end game content, and you don't want to do all of this leveling that I'm doing, right? You don't want to have to even do the architect. You're just doing it because you have to, right? If that's the case, just let people be level 50 so they can do the incarnate trials. Right? They don't want to do the other stuff. That's fine. Why make them? So that was my argument. You have to get to level 50 once, and then after that, if you just want to do endgame content, go ahead. Do endgame content. Nobody's stopping you. And meanwhile, the people who want to level up will be in the game leveling up. And then you can team up with those people. Right? And I don't know. I thought that would have been a pretty good solution. But the developers obviously didn't want that because they wanted you to have to level through the game because they needed you to subscribe to the game, right? So a lot of this is kind of based on the subscription model and the fact that they needed people to keep paying them every month. And so they were afraid if they just let people get to level 50, bang, right away, everybody would get one character to level 50, then make up 10 other level 50s, play them a little while, and unsubscribe. And maybe that's true. And maybe then they would have had to think about, well, what is the design flaw here that people don't want to play our game, you know? Now, I love City of Heroes, but it can get monotonous. And if you don't implicitly love the control system and the way the game plays the way I do, then there's there's really no reason to want to keep playing the same thing over and over again, playing the same missions over and over again and so forth. They can get really grindy. And especially back during live at the beginning when there were all these street hunt missions and they just took forever and it was just clearly just a time sink. I just want to see if he's up at the top here. So you can see, what are we doing here? This is going to be one of these pain in the neck missions where I'm going to have to pull out my minions and kill everybody in here until I get lucky enough to hit tab target and find Big Rocky, because I don't know where the heck he is. Trying to see if he's under anything, but I don't see that either. Alright, now the logical thing to me is that he would be at the far end, but who the heck knows? And it may even be, guys, because I've seen it happen a couple times, I'm sure, that you have to kill a certain number of them before Big Rocky spawns. And I may just have to do that. Slag pile. Every time I see orange, I think maybe it's him. But I think Big Rocky's going to be red. I thought I heard a glowy, and I shouldn't. We've got all the glowies. Yeah, so my question is always, why are players trying to skip your content? Right? And the idea, well, we're going to stop players from skipping content. Okay, well, you can mechanically do that, but that isn't fixing the problem, which is that people don't want to play your content. Right? That's a much bigger problem. And if you don't fix that, then the current fix is going to get exploited out of a way, you know? So, okay, so you put ambushes at the mission door, and people figure out a way around that, because the main problem you have is that they don't want to play the game that you have designed. And that was an argument that I had regularly on the forums with people like Statesman, where, especially when I was kind of disenchanted with the game after I was like in the 40s, and you know, you couldn't change the difficulty setting, so it was way too easy. And I finally got so bored I was ready to stop playing the game, and toward the end I was like playing the forums more than I was playing the game, right? And I was trying to get Statesman and the others, particularly Statesman because he was still in charge, to see that there was a flaw here, which is that the game was very repetitive, and on, you know, when you couldn't change the difficulty setting, when everything was white, say to a stalker or a scrapper really, because there were no stalkers yet, it was just so easy. And you can see how even with this character, even the yellows aren't that big of a deal, right? And let alone whites. You couldn't set it up. I mean, the difficulty slider wasn't my idea, but when someone came up with it, I was like, yes. And there were difficulty sliders in other games, like the BioWare games, which were out at the time. You could make, they were single player, but you could make them harder or easier. And I'm like, well, why can't we do this in City of Heroes, right? And they all know, you know, the biggest thing is, then when they said, okay, you can do difficulty sliders, you can make it harder, but you can't make it easier. And I said, why not? Right? Why can't a player set it to the difficulty level that is comfortable for the player? Why do they have to play it at the difficulty level you think is comfortable? And there was a big fight about that. I won that battle. I won that argument, actually. I don't even think I was playing the game anymore, but I did win the argument. And they did end up making it so that you could even drop it to -1. And you don't really need to drop it any more than that. I think most people can do blue cons. And so, yeah, I mean, I said, okay, make a difficulty slider. That would make the game more interesting. And it does, right? It's hard. Once it's harder, then it's not as boring. But you have to realize that when they had people just blowing their way through missions, it was because the missions were all white cons and people were bored, right? And I've got to go through this whole mission and fight every single white con in this entire power plant, right? And this is even with yellow cons. This is going to be so boring that I'm actually going to pause the video here until I find, what's his name, Big Rocky. Because I don't think you guys are going to want to watch all this. And I don't want to narrate it all because it's just going to be me going, oh, another spawn, right? So I will bring you guys back when I find Big Rocky. But that is really my point, right? That if I've got to pause it because it's going to get boring because it's too easy and too monotonous, then that means that there's a flaw in the mission, right? It shouldn't have been designed this way. And, you know, you really can't tell me that I'm the only one who sees this flaw, because a lot of times with missions like this, when I complain about them, say in my supergroup chat, they're like, oh, I don't even do those missions, right? Like, they don't even want to do it. It's like Shadow Shard. Nobody even does it, right? So they made this big annoying zone to, like, tick off the players And then what ended up happening is the players all just said, we're not going to play it. Right? If there's a badge to get, they go run in, they get the badge, and they ignore it for every other purpose, and they don't do missions, and nobody goes into the Shadow Shard. I'm the only person I've ever seen in the Shadow Shard on any server. So, you know, what is the point of making content that players aren't going to want to play? And then trying to force them to play it? That you never win doing that. You really don't ever win doing that. The players are not going to do something they hate. Oh, I am stunned. Wow. There we go. Oh, we aggroed the boss. I didn't even see him. Oh, that was my fault. Too busy talking. So I guess I don't have to pause here, guys. Although we may have to run away. Yeah, because my little guys are dead. Let's kill the slag heap first. See if I can let my guys kill the slag heap. Maybe Curly can kill him. No, guess not. Alright. Alright, so now I know where he is. Is that him down there? No, that's slag heap. There he is. He's going to keep trying to come to me, but he's not going to be able to get to me quickly enough to stop me from summoning. He really wants to get to me. I love how this like smoke comes up from the abyss. Alright, now he ran away, which means I'm probably not going to be able to find him. But let's see if I can get him. We're going to leave my guys there for a sec. Hopefully they won't come after me. Where'd he go? He should come back to this spot. Alright, well, let's send the guys down. And we'll take these guys out. There he is. Okay. You know, I didn't even realize I had a break free. Oh man, I just did not get him fast enough. Let's bring Miney back. Alright, let's see if we can bring this guy up. I'm going to bring these guys up as well, just so that they don't get involved in this fight with the boss. See, now this I like, right? This is like a little bit of a tactical puzzle of how do you get these guys out of the way, right? It's a little three-dimensional puzzle. I don't mind that. It's just that the zone is way too big. It only needed to be like that big, right? Half the size would have been sufficient to be interesting, but not tedious and monotonous. But with a lot of these things, City of Heroes, and I've said this before, they feel like you can never have too much of a good thing. So if a zone half this size is good, right? If this size is good, twice as big is twice as good. And it's just not true, right? It just leads to a lot of monotonous sameness. Alright, you guys. Let's hope that they go where I want them to go. Don't aggro. I'm gonna give Mo hell on Earth. Well, let's give Curly hell on Earth. Since he's my best guy. Alright, guys. Come on down. And attack. I'm gonna grab break free for myself. Wow, he's just doing so much damage. Just great. Well, Curly did his job. Curly did his job. He definitely did a good job by locking the guy in. He locked him down. That's what I want him to do. We got him. Good job, guys. Alright, let's head out. And we will contact Doc Buzzsaw, who says, "Excellent. I've been quite busy working on my latest creation. While you were out. With all that you've gathered, I should be able to complete my Super Freak post-haste. If you'll excuse me, I must finish my creation while the genius of inspiration is upon me." Well, that's a long enough episode, guys, so we will stop here. Until next time, I am Scrapperlock, and this has been City of Villains.